Okay, I'm starting off with asking you something right out of the gate. And I want you to actually answer it, not in your head, but in your body. So for some of you, maybe that's tuning into your heart space. As I just asked you, when was the last time you made a decision, a real decision that came entirely from within? And I'm not talking about from a spreadsheet or a pros and cons list or asking 5 people what they actually think, but from this place, from this part of you that just knows. I see you. Because here is what I have noticed. And I say this with so much love. We are a generation of women who have become absolutely brilliant at outsourcing our own inner knowing. And what this might look like is Googling it at 2 a.m., or we ask our friends, we do more research, we buy another course, we wait until we're ready, or we look for the sign, we look for the proof, we look for someone else to tell us what we already know within each and every single cell in our entire body. And trust me when I say this, I get it. I was the queen of this. Like, I had a PhD in waiting for permission from my own logic. But here is what I want to offer you today. What if the thing you have been looking for, whether that's the clarity, the confidence, the capacity to hold yourself and others in a completely different way, what if it was not out there in this fantasy world? What if it was right here in this moment? That is what today is about. So if you're staying with me, then let's go. All right, I'm going to take you back because I think the best way for you to understand what Orygen Breathwork really is to tell you how it found me. Not something that I established, because it was not glamorous. I promise you, it was not a beautiful wellness retreat moment where all of a sudden I'm like, yep, that's it. That's what I was going to do. I was in the middle of one of the hardest seasons of my life. I was navigating a separation, solo motherhood, and literally rebuilding everything from scratch. And I had spent 14 years in early education, leading teams, building these learning environments, mentoring people, and I was literally trained in how to create spaces of safety and growth for others. And yet in my own life, in my own body, in my own bedroom, at 2 a.m, I had nothing. I did not have the tools to hold what was actually happening inside of me. And I had never felt so alone. And I remember this moment where I was sitting on the floor, not in a cute cross-legged meditation position, but actually on the floor. And I started to become aware of my breath. Not because I knew what I was doing, but because I had nothing else left. And in that very moment, something happened. Something in my body mechanically shifted, not in my mind, not in my thoughts, but in my body. Like something that had been locked for years just released. And for the first time in months, I felt clear. I felt present. I felt like I could actually hold myself. And I remember thinking, what was that? Have you ever had a moment like that, where the breath did something that you could not explain, where something moved through you and you came out the other side completely different? Yeah, it was that moment for me as well. And that is the thing that we are talking about here in this space, because here is where it gets interesting. After that moment, I started to go deeper into breathwork spaces. I started experiencing more, and I also started noticing something that I simply could not unsee. People were having huge experiences, emotional releases, breakthroughs, moments of complete catharsis, and then they were being sent home with no integration, no structure, no one helping them make sense of what just happened in their body. And so I watched people leave those experiences wide open and then slowly close back up again, because nobody was there to help them hold what had been unlocked from inside of them. And that was the moment I realized The experience is not the transformation. The holding of the experience is the transformation. And that is the difference. And that is what Orygen Breathwork was built on. It is not a technique. It is not a style. It is a complete methodology, what we call the Orygen architecture, that teaches you how to hold transformation, not just create it, but actually hold and move it so it actually stays around and creates this huge phenomenal impact. So I want to teach you something right now, because I think this is going to be one of those aha moments that you are going to be thinking about for perhaps the rest of this week. I'm going to start by asking you something. And again, I invite you to feel this. Don't just think about it, although it's very easy to tap into that analytical mind. How much of your capacity to hold space for others is actually determined by your capacity to hold space for yourself? And I just invite you to allow that one to land. Think about the last time you were in a conversation with someone who was really activated, really emotional, really in it, and you could feel yourself starting to contract, starting to want to fix it or change the subject or say something to make it better, starting to get uncomfortable with their discomfort and what was coming up for them. That contraction right there, that is not a character flaw. That is a nervous system response. That is your body hitting the edge of its capacity. And here is the thing that nobody speaks into in breathwork training. The depth that you can hold for others is directly limited by the capacity you have built within yourself. So read that in for a moment. The depth you can hold for others is directly limited by the capacity you have built within yourself. So when we talk about becoming a breathwork facilitator, we are not speaking into learning a script. We are not talking about mentoring and memorizing a playlist and working with others. We are talking about expanding your container, building the capacity to be in the room with someone's deepest emotion without flinching, without trying to fix it, and without needing it to be different. That right there is the work, and it starts with you. Which brings me to who this is actually for. I want to describe someone to you, and I want you to notice what happens in your body as I go through. She has been doing the inner work for a while, not just reading about it, but living and breathing it. She has sat in circles, she has done the therapy, she has journaled her way through some genuinely deep, dark seasons. And she has felt the breath do something in her body that she absolutely cannot fully explain to anyone who has not been there. She has had those moments, those finally moments where something shifted so completely that she could not go back to who she was before. And she has this knowing, this quiet, persistent, slightly inconvenient knowing that she is here to hold space for others. Like it keeps showing up in conversations, in the way people naturally come to her, in the way that she feels most alive when she is in that space of deep presence with another human being. And perhaps this is happening right now in your circle. Is that you, even a little bit? I thought so, and I know this because you're still here. But here is the thing. Alongside that knowing, there is also a voice, and that voice sounds something like, who am I to do this? And what if I'm not ready? What if something comes up in a experience and I freeze? And what if I invest in this and nothing actually genuinely happens? What if I can't take it anywhere? And I want to say something about that voice, because I think we have been taught to treat it as evidence that we are not ready. Like the doubt literally means that you switch off your visions and stop. But what if the doubt is not a stop sign? What if it is actually a signal that you are standing at the very edge of your next level of capacity? Because here is what I have noticed in every woman who has ever done this type of work and wanted to step into training, the one who was afraid before they started, became the most extraordinary person because they came in with humility, they came in willing to change, and they were. Now, and this is very important, I also want to say something that I think gets missed in conversations about facilitation training. This is not only for women who want to build a big soul-aligned business. And I need to say that really clearly because I think there is assumption that a facilitation certification is a business move. And yes, that pathway absolutely exists inside this training, but it is not the only one. And honestly, it is not even the primary one. This training is for the woman who is done going outside of herself, the one that's done outsourcing her power, who is done buying someone else's framework for her own body, and who is done waiting for a teacher to hand her what she already has inside, who is done looking for the version of herself that is finally ready and is willing to consider that maybe, just maybe, she is already her. And that is who this space is for. I want to tell you why I actually built this training. Where did it all come from? Because it was not a business decision for me. I want to be really honest about that. It was not me sitting down with a whiteboard going, okay, what is the market gap here and how can I make bank quickly? It was a response to something I kept witnessing that I genuinely could not ignore. For too long, women have been going outside of themselves. We have been handed these frameworks built for someone else's body, someone else's nervous system, someone else's way of moving through the world. And we have been told the answers are in the next course, the next certification, the next person who has figured it out. And we have been trained to look outward for the validation that only ever comes from within. And I kept watching and observing women, brilliant, capable, deeply feeling women who had everything they needed to transform their own lives and the lives of others, but they did not trust themselves enough to use it. And so I remember sitting there thinking about the version of me on that floor, the one who had been leading and mentoring and building for 14 years and still did not have the tools to hold herself. And I thought, what if someone had given me this? What if someone had said, here is the structure, here is the science, here is the methodology, and you already have everything else? That is what this training is. It is literally my give back to the women who I believe, with everything that I have, and are so capable of doing this inner work and of turning their lives into the reality that their dreams and their breath have been pointing them towards for years. This is a container for your transformation, for your capacity, for your identity as a woman who trusts herself in the room when things get real. Because the world needs more women who can hold space without needing to fix, who can be present without needing to perform, and who can guide someone through the deepest parts of themselves without flinching. And that is exactly what we built inside this training. So if it's okay with you, I'd love to show you what's actually inside. Orygen Breathwork Facilitator Training is a 6-week online immersive, and I'm going to walk you through each week, not just to tell you what it is, but to help you feel the arc of what is actually going to happen to you when you step into this type of container. Because this is not a course that you consume. This is a training you move through, and it moves through you, with your body, with your nervous system, your identity. And there is a big, big difference, and you will feel it from the moment that you step in. Week 1 is where we focus on the foundational coherence and the science of the body. Before you guide anyone else, you stabilize yourself. And you'll get a genuine, grounded, embodied understanding of the physiology behind breath work, the CO2 tolerance, the nervous system, the architecture of safety, and you learn how to create a space that is not just technically safe, but deeply regulated and responsive. And this is where you stop performing presence and start becoming it. Then we move into week 2, which is the arc of the transformation. This is where you learn the full Orygen journey architecture, how to guide a complete journey from arrival all the way through to integration, not just getting through an experience, but actually understanding how transformation unfolds in the body and how to lead that process without rushing it, forcing it, or losing yourself inside it. And then we move into week 3, which is the facilitator's toolkit and the language of leadership. This is where you get the practical tools, session structures, playlists, scripts, client communication frameworks, but more importantly, you learn how to use them without becoming dependent on them. You start to find your voice, your leadership, your own style, the version of you that guides without second guessing herself in the room. Week 4 is where we tap into the trauma-informed facilitation and the art of holding and moving space. This is where your capacity deepens. You learn how to safely work with emotional release, activation, and intensity without needing to fix it, advise on it, or interfere with it. You develop the ability to stay steady when others are moving, to hold the body through completion rather than amplifying experience. And this is the difference between guiding a session and creating a transformational journey. Week 5 is inevitably the practice in action, where you step into facilitation in a supported, structured environment. You lead a fellow student through live experiences, applying everything you have learned while being held in real-time feedback and reflection. This is where confidence stops being practiced and starts becoming embodied. And week 6 is integration and taking this magic out into the world. This is where the training becomes your life. You're guided through how to create your signature offer suite, how to navigate pricing and ethics, and how to integrate this work into your existing world, or build something entirely new around it, from retreats, corporate wellness spaces, your community, your family, your own daily rhythm. This is where your facilitation becomes lived. Inside this training itself, you will receive 40 plus on-demand trainings, weekly live training calls, live activation journeys where you're in the experience as both participant and student simultaneously, peer reflection, workbook integration and assessment practicum, a guided audio library, and ongoing workshops, and an alumni community when you graduate. And now for the bonuses. Bonus 1 is the Orygen Sound Therapy Integration, which is valued at $997, and it will teach you how to weave sound into your experiences. Bonus 2 is Human Design in Business and the Energetics of Your Unique Frequency, valued at $1,978. This is not a generic business strategy. This is your unique strategy based on how you are actually wired to lead, attract, and build. And the fast action bonus for those that are ready to move is the facilitator's guided practice and audio suite, valued at $997. This disappears when the timer hits 0. So if you're watching this and the timer is still running, it's your invitation to move. The total value of everything inside this training is $15,972, and your investment in this founding round is $2,899, with payment plans starting from $330 a month. And I want to speak to why now is the most important time to be in this space. This is the founding round, which means this is the only time this training will ever exist in this form, at this rate, with this intimacy, with me fully in the room and not scaling or delegating. This cohort is small intentionally because I am not here to fill seats. I am here for what actually happens inside this container, witnessing you becoming the most confident version of yourself. The women in this round get something no future cohort will ever get: the intimacy at the beginning, the founding round price, and the closest access to me and to this work that will ever exist. When this round closes, the prices go up significantly because the demand will be there, the results will be there, and the founding round intimacy will be gone. Okay, I want to end with something that I think matters more than everything I have just shared with you here in this space. You already know if this is for you because you can feel it. And it's not because I've convinced you of anything, but because something in your body recognized it before I finished the first sentence. That little yes that showed up, that quiet, persistent, slightly terrifying yes, that is not something to override with logic. That is information, it's feedback. That is your body telling you something true. So I want to ask you something right here, right now, in this moment. And I invite you to feel into this once again in your body. What would it mean about you if you said yes to this? Not what would it cost you? What would it mean about you? Because I think the woman who is on the edge of this decision, the one who is not actually afraid of the investment, they are not afraid of what it means to finally stop waiting and choose themselves, to stop circling the thing they know they are here to do and actually step in. And here is what I know. Not think, know. The version of you who trusts herself, who leads with embodied confidence, who holds space for others without flinching. She does not arrive before the commitment. She arrives because of it. And this training is my absolute give back to the women who are ready. Not perfect, not already there, ready to do the work, ready to trust themselves enough to begin. So if that is you, and I think you know if it is, the link is below this video. Applications take 1 to 2 minutes. Payment plans are available, and I would love to genuinely see you inside this founding round. With so much love, Elise, the founder and trainer of Orygen Breathwork. See you soon.